What is going on, CyberFam? Hope you all had a great weekend. Today we have another video from Palantir. This is discussed naturally Medicare recommendations from a company called Chapter, which is, I believe, part of their Foundry for Builders program. So the founder of Chapter is going to talk about some of the things that he's doing. He does delve into more of the tech aspect of what Chapter is doing and perhaps how it relates to Foundry. So there's not too much in here. It's a pretty short video. I'll leave the link in the description below. This little thing will have chapters. So, if you want to skip sections, go down below. But it's pretty straightforward. I think I'll chime in on some of the techie side of aspects of things and see if we can project further, just so it can be explained better for you guys and you guys can understand like what kind of businesses are actually starting to use Foundry and what kind of tech they're using. All right. Before we get started, guys, I want to give a special thank you to all my subscribers. You guys have been awesome. I love chatting with you in the comment section below, and the channel's growing like crazy, so I really appreciate you guys spending your time and voting with the subscribe button. Secondly, I'd like to give a special shout out to a few of the people that made this possible. Chad Palantir, Sachin Vats, my guys D, and Uniformly at Random. I'll post all y'all Twitter over here. You guys have been awesome, man. Oh, and another special shout out to HJ2170 from YouTube. I love you for sharing the content, man. Really appreciate you guys spending your time with me. Let's get right into it.
At Chapter, we help older Americans find and enroll in the right Medicare plan for them. One of the big set of challenges in Medicare is dealing with the data. Foundry accelerates our data component.
That's a big problem everywhere, man. It's not just for Medicare, but there's so much data everywhere ever since the internet came about. It's just a factor of going through it is a gargantuan task.
It accelerates our operations and allows us to provide really great services. The challenge of retiring is hard enough, and we don't want there to be any additional stress or worry when people have to make this really identity-provoking transition point. So at Chapter.
Before we move on, man, that's such an understatement of this entire generation. Retirement is hard. Damn. Like, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I know it's totally off topic, but like all of this stuff is basically for my retirement, really, right? Like for my retirement, my family's well-being. It's so crazy how we're all taking this stuff so seriously, and I really appreciate all of you guys being here for that, but anyway, hopefully this is all good news for us.
Chapter, we help people not only ensure that they are in the right plan, but also help them with the process and make sure that they're saving as much money and getting the best benefits that they can for their needs.
Okay.
Every other Medicare advisor in the country or Medicare broker in the country will recommend only plans that pay them. And we looked at that and said, this is crazy. We took a different approach, which was let's integrate the data on all Medicare plans and let's find the right combination of plans, the right options for every single person. There are a lot of data challenges, data integration, data management, data access challenges. For sure. Before we started using Foundry, our tech stack was pipelines written in Node.
Okay.
And a MySQL database on the back.
Relational.
Of course, we had some Java components and had a little bit more infrastructure there, but a lot of it was custom and pretty prone to error. We were writing our pipelines and doing a lot of the hard work and tedious work that it takes to build a good data foundation. Unless you are in the business of building a data management platform, you should not be in the business of building a data management platform. Having Foundry allows us to have still a robust QA process, but much more automated and much more robust. And so the ability to have multiple people be able to look at pipelines and engage with pipelines in an easy to understand way is really valuable. Really, it's data integration, a lot of monitoring on that data integration. I don't want to be in the business of having to write custom scripts for every type of data check. And then accessibility for the whole team. Large companies are resource constrained, but it's an entirely different level when you're a startup. And making sure that we can operate efficiently is the most important thing. On the less technical side, we have a lot of our sort of operations components built out in Foundry.
Hold on. Okay, so let's touch on some things there. So these guys are, you can almost look at them like an insurance type of data set. So that's probably why they're using SQL. I'll touch on a few aspects as to why it is, but just to give you guys a heads up, like the whole Node.js thing is actually quite a modern type of tech. It's kind of been around since the 2010s, really. Facebook and Google have been huge contributors, especially Facebook with their React library and stuff. But The thing is, a lot of the newer age tech tend to go with things like Node, one, because it has very, very key benefits, okay? So like the fact that modern code bases and people that are using more like recent tech are trying to value and actually seeing the value in Foundry is actually, it speaks volumes, right? Because when you're in a startup mode, you're trying to do everything from a cost perspective. You're saying, okay, how much can this like save me money, right? That's why actually a lot of code for startups is written from scratch, right? So like that's very important here, because it's almost like Palantir knows that these startups can't afford Foundry, but they know that deep down they need Foundry. They need him, right? So the fact that they're able to provide this to them, and these startups are smart, that they'll use anything they possibly can. The number one capital for startups they need, other than the actual money to survive, is time. And if you have your engineers writing code pretty much like tool sets from the ground up, it's great for the engineering. It's great for the sort of meta of the company. But at the end of the day, you need them to actually work on the key components. And the problem is some of the key components come like after some of the utility components. You have to write some of the other scripts before you get to the main thing. And that's part of the problem with like startups. So I think what Palantir is doing is they're trying to alleviate some of that, you know, extra work, like redundant menial tasks, and let Foundry handle that for the most part as the workhorse. Now, coming to the data side of it, they did say that they're using MySQL. And that's basically a database. Now, I've talked about this in other videos, I think, but more, okay, so a lot of folks, when they start doing Node, they do what's called NoSQL, and you'll see this as well. But just really, again, I want to just get to the point of SQL databases. But when you compare the NoSQL and SQL, this is actually quite a big sort of talking point in the industry in terms of which one to use for big data. Now, right now, SQL is taking the cake, but it all depends on your use case, right? The reality of this, guys, to be honest, is most organizations actually have both. A pretty good, healthy mix of both. It depends on what your use case is, right? So like if you have like semi-structured sort of data, then you go with NoSQL. If you have very highly structured data, you go with SQL. And like, you know, like for example, SQL is just like a really old technology. I think Oracle and some other guys came up with it way back. Like I'm talking before the 90s, right? And it's very established tech, very mature, and it's just, you know, a lot of developers just know it, right? NoSQL is great too. It just works better with unstructured and unrelated data, right? If the data is not really related or doesn't have a schema or something, right? Works very well with that. And it's very fast and scalable horizontally. We're using SQL, okay? Is better for structured data. So anything that has a schema, right? For things like, think about like banking or like insurance or some kind of like a payroll system, right? Those kind of stuff. Banking is actually huge. They use SQL a lot. Those kind of structured data where every single entry has the same kind of structure, right? And you just need a place to store it out. Basically anything that looks like a spreadsheet will fit into SQL. But the truth is, for big data and writing pipelines, it's easier to manage with a small team of engineers using something like SQL. And that's probably why he went with MySQL. Anyway, long story short, guys, anytime anybody makes a decision on what software or what kind of program they're using or what tech they're going to use, there are trade-offs, right? So in this case, what I think was Kobe's trade-off is that there would be some bottlenecks, some data bottlenecks, and some other things that come from the SQL side and also come from the application side. It's not exactly a one-to-one match, right? So I just want to give you the gist of that, like what kind of tech these guys are coming from. Okay, now from the Foundry aspect of it, it looks like he was saying that, well, one thing, whenever we write code like this, right, other parts of your org, like QA people, project managers, all this stuff, they're actually on other platforms that track your work. But it looks like Foundry, actually, you can onboard these people as like, users, and they can actually view your entire process, right? And I'm pretty sure it's RBAC, so like role-based access control. So once they're logged in, you can actually give them roles to say, okay, you can only see this. You can see this, but you can't do anything with the pipeline, for example, right? So developers can actually kick off the pipeline, but project managers and other people in the chain can't actually do anything with it because they don't know, but they can view it and track it and analyze it. So I think that's pretty important here to take away. Another thing he talks about is the whole QA process, right? So just to give you guys a quick gist, once a developer writes code, it goes into a code base, right? And then there's a whole bunch of automated processes that run through there. So there's tests, there's like quality checks and all this stuff, right? Now, usually there's a team of just QA people, QA as in quality assurance, that go in and actually check the code. So they write their own scripts, right? They have their own scripts that say, okay, we're looking for this, 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 and this in the code base, and it needs to pass this case, right? They'd run all sorts of tests. If it fails, it goes back to the developers, they fix it, and they push back code again, okay? So this whole process is actually quite segregated. They use different systems, they use different things. Yes, it all talks to the same code base, but the systems that they use are a little bit different. So Foundry, it actually, like I was telling you in the previous point, it allows you to onboard these people here, and then they can be like a bystander as these processes and pipelines go on. And when it's their turn to actually contribute, they're able to do that within one platform, which is really good for integration for the whole team, right? So you're taking completely segregated, separated components of the software development lifecycle, and you're mashing it together using one platform, which is very, very important. How much functionality does that provide? We don't know, but it seems like they provide at least a very, very key tasks of, you know, getting the information for each step of the way in terms of these teams. Another point is the guy literally says, unless you're in the business of building a data management platform, you shouldn't be in the business of building a data management platform. That's kind of makes sense, because like a lot of people actually just kind of like dick around and don't know what they're doing. They think they know what they're doing. They address one simple case and nothing else works. So, you know, it's really, I agree with him on that point. It's like, if you don't know what the people need from this, then don't build it, because then what you're going to do at best is just provide something that already exists, maybe like a slightly better version or a slightly worse version, depending on what it is, right? So again, a trade-off. And then the last component you talked about was the whole like monitoring, alerting from that data set. Now this is actually like a totally different set of engineers altogether usually, right? Guys, all it is you have a whole bunch of data sets, right? So when you have these databases, you pretty much log everything in there. So there's multiple tables, whole bunch of information is being logged. And what they really need to do is actually take that data out, and there's a whole team of this that does this stuff, guys, right? Curate it first, and then from that curation you analyze it to say, okay, what kind of business value, what kind of human readable, you know, data points can we take out of this stuff? And that's basically what these guys are trying to do. So that aspect of the business is super crucial for chapters. Or chapter. That's pretty much, I think, where he's trying to leverage Foundry. And it's pretty interesting, because we don't exactly know what the full capabilities of Foundry. It starts to seem more and more like Foundry is kind of like a molding clay for these startups, and they can use it for however they can. If that is the case, and it's quite agnostic to the actual business case, which is very, very crazy, right? Because a lot of the software that's in the market is not very agnostic. It addresses a very specific problem. It addresses a small baseline subset of that larger problem. So it's you see what I'm saying? It's very catered. Foundry seems like it's almost like a revolving door rather than an actual door where you need like a specific key. People can just go in and kind of see how these things work and use it for however they want. So that's quite powerful. Of course, we don't know, and I don't work there, so I don't know, but it's starting to seem like that's the case here.
Out in Foundry, so we know we're able to do pretty advanced and sophisticated business operations metrics and reporting in a few days, set that up in a few days, whereas I've seen this at larger organizations. It can take months or years to set up the level of sophistication of reporting we're able to do. We do a lot of analysis on what plans are good for what groups of people. So it helps us with our targeting. It helps us when we think about building out our decision trade-offs, which are in our own product that we build. We can really easily understand whether there is a lot of heterogeneity in plan in a particular geography or on a particular contour. And then that allows us to focus our energy for building our product in places where it's going to add the most value. It accelerates our operations and allows us to provide really great services. In terms of our own software, we're actually starting to use some of the Foundry backend to build some internal tools on top of it. We are now exploring using Foundry as actually a customer data platform instead of using some of the existing ones, just because it's a great source of truth for our organization. And so using that to accelerate.
Wow. Hold on. Let's address that from the first point. So he was talking about how it takes other organizations a long time to do this, and it's very true, okay? Seriously, because what you guys have to understand, I just explained to you how there's multiple teams that work on this entire, different like stages, right? Once the software, like just getting the type of product that you need, getting the type of software that you need to help with this, just getting it, the discovery phase and all this takes months, sometimes even like 6 months, 2 quarters maybe, right? Or more. Once it's in there, you actually have to have like your middle tier and like other developers sit there and say, okay, how much can this interact with our product? Then you have to converse with the team that you bought the stuff from to say, like, if you need anything extra, you got to get them to actually program it, or you program it and they somehow, like, you know, piece it together, right? That maybe another quarter, right? And then all in all, when your teams, especially your data engineers and all these people, start to actually churn out the stuff they need to, you're talking like the whole year after you actually first prospected the product. Palantir comes in and they're like, give us 6 weeks and you're pretty much good to go, right? So that in itself is like quite revolutionary, to be honest with you. And then he also goes on to talk about like how they do analysis to then adjust their trade-offs, which is, I think, what he was mentioning as one of their core competencies of their product in Chapter. So this analysis part, guys, you know, at the end of the day, when you look at these Palantir videos, here's a trick that I know, or I use to see what Foundry offers, okay? Look at the cuts, right? They're not like, it's not like one long video. Look at the cuts that they do and look at the main point of each of those cuts. That's what Foundry does. So if you don't know, that's how you do it. In this case, he's talking about analysis, right? So there's clearly some sort of like analysis type product which goes into your data system and actually does some sort of like modeling and stuff coming out. That's really important. That's actually that's a huge feature, okay? But anyway, so they do that and they manage the trade-offs. And remember, like I was saying before, anything in this industry, anything at all, from the software you pick, from the code base you pick, everything above, all the way to the business case, there are trade-offs. And the type of trade-offs are basically what makes companies successful or not, okay? So another major point he brings up, which is huge, is that he says that he's using the Foundry backend to actually build on top of it using their own sort of like, with their own scripts and stuff like that, which is important, which means that there is a level of feedback coming back from Foundry after it's integrated your data source, where you can actually, for example, write smaller scripts that didn't maybe need to go and get the data, right? To then actually have a layer on top of that, which you wouldn't normally have until after your maybe third or fourth phase of your life cycle, right? Like you would build the product fully, you would push it out there, and then you would add that as an optimization layer. This is allowing this company Chapter to actually move to that step like that, right? So you're like, they're past that initial stage where they need to just have a single feature out and a single functionality. They're adding functionality already, which is pretty important actually for a startup, right? You want to be the most robust out there, like number one. And the last thing I'll tell you, which is super huge, they're attempting to use Foundry as a customer data platform. Man, that's like, guys, like that's, I don't know if this is what he's talking about, but if what I'm thinking is what it is, then he's trying to use Foundry as a CRM. Like how many things can this thing do? In a way that makes me think a little bit, because like it could be kind of too big. I don't know, like that could be one of the bad signs. When I mean too big, I mean like the actual product itself could be massive, right, to deploy. So it could take up a lot of cloud resources if it's cloud-based and all this other stuff. But I mean, the feature set is so rich. Like it can play as a CRM. It's crazy. Like what the heck, right? I mean, think about it. That's CRM is like there's publicly traded companies that, you know, their entire company from just this point. Forget all this other stuff that he's mentioned. From just this one point, there's entire companies that are built off of this, and Foundry has it as a feature. I mean, like, God, I don't even know, man. Like, what even is this company? Jeez.
Just the way that we understand our members in our business. Foundry is critical to making sure that we have the best data. And the best data is important to making the best Medicare plan recommendations.
Absolutely.
If we don't have the best Medicare plan recommendations, we aren't fulfilling our promise to our members.
Jeez, okay. I don't know, guys. I mean, I think I've beaten this thing enough from this video. I made this video like 4 times as long as it normally, or 5 times as long as it normally is. So I'm sorry for that, but I'm just really trying to capture as much as I can from all these videos. Because guys, the thing I'm looking for, right? I don't know what you guys are looking for, but the thing I'm looking for is this company, from what I can see, is already a solid product. Like they make solid software. So what's important here, and I've talked about this in my other videos here, but what's important here is that now the 3 pillars of like any good software company, again, my opinion, but 3 pillars are sales, marketing, product, right? Product is solid. Marketing is starting. This is all marketing, right? The marketing is starting off. The next thing is sales. And it seems like it's all feeding into that wheelhouse there. So man, I don't know. I can't wait till, you know, the adoption rate increases for these things. It seems like they're really pushing out good content. I gotta be honest with you though, a lot of big companies are not going to look at startups and say, oh, these startups are doing it, so let me try. They're not going to do that. The problem is a lot of these big companies have really old sort of minded people that like to do things a certain way and have been doing things a certain way historically, and it's going to take a lot more than just really good sales staff to flip them. But time will tell, and right now there's a huge supply chain crunch right now, right? So I think Palantir can really address that, actually, and they have been addressing that with NHS and a few other folks. So I'm really hoping that these guys can ramp up their sales and marketing as they are currently doing, and provide some sort of impact. I don't think we're going to know until maybe like end of 2022, more likely. But anyway, that's all I got, guys. If you like this stuff, feel free to like and subscribe, or don't, I don't know. But just use this as research if you can. It's going to build my own conviction daily. Anyway, thank you for tuning in and spending your time with me. Catch y'all in the next one. Peace.